On today's show, I'm going to address a viewer email about whether or not it makes sense to sell cheap books, and I've got a What's Sold recap. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 200 and what should we call this? Is this 279 or is this 278.5? Since it's actually the second part of this week's episode. Like I talked about on Monday's show, I had so much I wanted to talk about regarding this message that I received from a YouTube member that I thought it made sense to break it out into a separate episode. So we're going to call it 278.5 and just run with that. My name is Ryan. I'm a full-time reseller specializing in books, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. At the back end of the show, I do have a fairly decent What Sold recap where we will talk about yet still more books. So some of the things that I find myself circling back to on this channel with some regularity, there are kind of 3 or 4 main kind of topics that I keep coming back to. One of which is how amazing it is to be a reseller and have an opportunity to shape your business in the way that you see fit, to make it your own, to not have to do what someone else is doing. And that is super important, and we're going to dive into that probably a little more deeply. Another thing is how I caution people to about the notion that comparison is the thief of joy, that it's a very risky business to compare your business or your expectations to that of others, because you don't really ever fully know what it is they're doing. You look at maybe a big bookseller that's selling dozens or hundreds of books a week, and you may feel like your business isn't doing well, but you may be, as is the case with me, a one-man show, one-person show, and that group may have 2, 3, 4 people, may have hired help, may have virtual assistants, and it gives you an unfair comparison. So that is another thing that I find myself coming back to. And then lastly is the notion of being very cautious about who you listen to and who you take advice from, because there are people out there whose goals are not aligned with yours, who are not in the same life situation or experience, or who just genuinely don't have your best interest at heart. They're trying to sell a course or a program or a master class or whatever. And it's really important that you be very cautious about what advice you take in and actually internalize and which you don't. It's one of the reasons on this show that I always preface most of these conversations with, I'm not trying to tell anyone that this is the way to run your business or this is the best way to do something. I'm simply trying to share the way one person, me, is doing it here in my little bat cave and managing to have some success. If you were on the live show, I don't know what that was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was someone who attended that live who spent the majority of the show questioning my methods, talking about how I was doing things the wrong way, doing things the slow way, and that he or she had this other method that I should be doing and whatever. And I made it a point each time that happened to talk about, hey, you know what? I have found a system over 5+ years now of doing this that works for me. It is efficient for me. It's a system through trial and error that I've developed that works very well for me. You clearly have found something that works for you, and that's what this is all about. So again, going back to the first point, finding the way to make your business your own. So what I'd like to do, I'm just going to read this message from this viewer, YouTube member, and I'm going to read my response, and then I'm going to kind of dive into it a little more deeply, point by point. I would appreciate any comments or thoughts that you have on this. This may have actually been something that would have been worthwhile doing on a live, but because of the way the holidays have fallen this week, there will be no live. So let's get into this message. So I'm listing these paperbacks that aren't great, and the Love Bomb first print sells, and I make $4.44. I'm happy. It sold within an hour, and I paid a dime, but I already made my money back for the whole lot I got that day at the Friends Library. So I know people say it's not worth the listing time, but to me, it is, because books will let me scale. Another friend who advises me pointed that out. I live in a real small, isolated mountain town. I've tried clothes and vintage. I do get other items, but those are mainly at garage sales. Also, books is what I have background knowledge on. Even before I was trying, I just instinctively know. So it really seems like a dream job. So my conflict was while I'm listing is like they are common, but since I'm paying literally less than a cent average and I'm just starting out, I need to list what I got. I do have some mid range books, and of course, I find faster selling unique books. I feel like as I list, I will learn, and if when I need to, if I need to get rid of books, then I will figure that out. But sometimes, for the sake of getting my goal of 70 listings a week, sometimes I have to list easy books. I can't believe that paperback sold that fast. It literally was not in great condition at all, but this is why I'm still making myself list because I don't know yet. The paperback selling sort of confirmed my gut. To me, this seems like the natural way of things for book resellers starting out. What do you think? So, as you can imagine, I had some thoughts. So again, I'm just going to read you a verbatim my email response, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the thoughts behind that. So I say all the time on my show that the beauty of reselling is we get to determine for ourselves what we want our business to look like. Some people don't want to list anything under $20. I can't personally source enough stuff at that price for that to make sense as a business strategy for me. If selling a book to make $4 or $5 seems like a good plan to you, then you should absolutely do it. Spoiler alert, if you list enough of them, you'll start to sell a decent amount. And if you sell 4 or 5 or more a day, that starts to add up, especially when paired with all the other stuff you might be selling. I listed 21 books today on eBay and Mercari, and the ones that were $12.99 and higher also went to Etsy. These are the listed prices plus shipping of the books I listed. I had 2 at $4.99, 2 at $5.99, 1 at $6.99, 3 at $7.99, 1 at $8.99, 3 at $12.99, 3 at $14.99, and then 1 each at $18.99, $19.99, $39.99, $52.99, $59.99, and $62.99. That's my 22 listings. That's roughly $400 of potential sales. These were part of a big lot, 50 cents each, so I've got 1050 in all of that. If they all sold, that's 97.4% gross margin before fees. Even the $4.99 books will net me nearly 5 times my investment. So I absolutely list those cheap books right along with the big hitters. Again, when I do my What Sold recap on the show, I might be talking about 10 or 20 books for a week that sold for $20 or more, but I've likely sold anywhere from 60 to 100 that week for less than $20. Why would I not want to sell that many books at an average selling price of, say, $10 to $12 a pop with a cost of goods sold almost always under $1? And as you just experienced, cheap books sometimes flip quickly, even if they're not in great shape. Clearly, there's work and time involved in listing and shipping that many books, but for me, it's like printing money. You get to decide whether that makes sense for your business. For me, it's been great. For others, it would be too much labor, and they don't want to do it like that. Both answers are right for the individual making the call. But be cautious of anyone telling you there's no money in cheap books, because there absolutely is if you want to do the work. I hope that helps. So that's a lot. Obviously, I talk about on this channel all the time the $4.99 free shipping model does not work for me. I can't. There's no way to make money. So mathematically, there's just no way to do it, and that is not a game that I'm in. But clearly, if I can list for $4.99 plus shipping with a cost of goods sold of 40, 50 cents, or in some cases less than that, does that make sense? For some people, it probably wouldn't. If you're a part-time seller doing this on the side, you don't have the time to mess around trying to do, like I do, 130, 140, 160 listings a week, and then to also pack up and ship 100 or 120 or 130 listings a week. That's not the game that you should probably be in. Obviously, you can choose to do that if you want, but if you're a part-time side hustle, working a full-time gig, and you got kids and soccer and all the rest, it probably doesn't make sense to do that. But for someone that's doing it full time, is there opportunity there? As I just spelled out, I think that there probably is. And I'll use last week again as an example. If you follow me over on Instagram, I posted that last week I had 120 listings that sold. I did 120 transactions. Today's What Sold recap, I think, if I remember correctly, has 16 items in it. So that means I sold 104 listings under $20 last week, because that's kind of the cutoff for where I do my What Sold. That 104 listings probably, again, on average, sold for $10 to $12 a piece plus shipping, because I charge for shipping. So that's the gross selling price, 10 to 12 bucks. Even after fees, if you take 20%, that's potentially $800, maybe a little more in profit on those 104 books. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's pretty decent money. On top of the other 16 that sold, that I'm going to bring you, that sold up to almost $100 a piece. That's a pretty full week. And yes, I did 160 listings and I packed and shipped 120 items. So I put in some effort and I spent some time to do it. But was it worth it in the end? Again, going back to the original point, you are the one who gets to decide. You get to define what success looks like for you. If selling 100 books a week for an average net margin of $8 or $10, you can make $800 or $1,000 a week. Is that a business model that makes sense? Again, as I said, it's not necessarily for everybody, but for somebody who wants to sell books, you get to choose. You can pick. Again, the beauty of reselling. I've chosen at this point to focus mostly on media with a high focus on books. Other people don't want to mess with books. I made the statement, I don't know, it was a couple of months ago. I was talking about tools. I see tools all the time out at estate sales, and I know there's money in tools. I have absolutely no knowledge of tools. I'm not interested in tools. Am I passing up a potential profit opportunity? 100% I am. I know that I am, but that's a choice that I get to make for my business. You get to do the same thing with yours, and you may choose to sell tools and not books. You don't want to mess with a $5 plus shipping book, and that is totally acceptable. It goes back to my initial point. That's the beauty of this business. You can pick and choose, and you can make a living eventually out of pretty much anything, any niche that you would choose. You can choose what platforms you sell on. You can choose the kind of places you want to source and how you want to source, how much money you invest, how much time and effort you want to put into that. All of that is up to you as a individual business owner. And that is what sets this apart from working for someone else. And then leads into those other things that I was talking about being cautious about not comparing yourself. I have plenty of sellers that I follow that are doing a month what I might do in a year in sales. But they're in completely different categories. Their average selling price, because of what they're selling, is significantly higher than mine. Although, to be fair, so is their cost structure. They're not selling 50-cent items for $40, $50, $80, $100. They're selling $50 or $60 items for $100 or $200. So the entire structure of their business is different. And I commented back during the eBay Open thing when I went to the local meetup for that. The people who were hosting that are sneaker sellers, and they were claiming to do $650,000 a year in sneaker sales. As a seller who's not going to do anywhere near that kind of volume, you could look at that and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right because I'm not making that kind of money." But again, they have a completely different cost structure than I have. Their business model is completely different. Their goals are completely different. So comparing myself to them is a dangerous, dangerous game. And I recommend that you don't do it at all. Or that if you do, again, that you try to find people whose business models, whose codes of ethics, whose goals and plans and dreams and schemes all kind of align with yours. And again, it's one of the reasons that I've tried to host on this show people from different backgrounds. I've had other media sellers on. I've had Annette on, who does like handbags and fashion, Colorado Reworn, who's a fashion seller. There are a million ways to do this. And comparing yourself, especially outside of your field, can get pretty dangerous. Again, going back to the be careful who you take advice from. We talked about this a couple of months ago. There's a couple of podcasts I listen to that relentlessly say that if you're a bookseller and you're not selling on Amazon, you're doing it wrong. Why would you say that? You, again, just as a generic statement, should a bookseller consider selling on Amazon? 100%. Absolutely. It is arguably the go-to place to sell books and media. But if it does not align with other goals that you may have as a person and the way you want to run your business, then maybe it doesn't make sense. That's the choice that I have made. I don't sell on Amazon. I don't want to jump through their hoops. We went through on Monday's episode some of the changes that are coming on the FBA side of things. I don't want to deal with all that. So that's just not a model that I'm interested in. Does that mean I'm wrong? Does that mean they're wrong? No, it just means that we have made different decisions. The difference between that podcast and this one is that I'm open-minded enough to say that is a great opportunity, but it's just one I choose not to do. And those guys are telling everybody that's not doing it their way that they're wrong. At the risk of alienating some people, I have no use for that whatsoever. And I don't think you should either. Again, you can create your own business model. You get to define what success looks like for you. There is money to be made in high volume, low cost items. Amazon is not just selling $100 items. They sell millions, probably billions of items under $5 and $6. To say that there's no money to do that just is flat wrong. Now, are there costs involved with it? Again, yes, you've got to have the time to deal with that many pieces of inventory. You've got to have the luxury of having someplace to store that much stuff. An inventory system that allows you to find those things quickly so you don't spend all day trying to find a couple of books to ship. So there are some non-monetary costs in your time and effort that you're trading to make that money that way. Again, it's your choice whether or not that's the business model you choose to pursue. But to the point of this, is there money to be made in low cost books, low value books? And again, it all happens at the buy. If you're buying, like she was talking about, she's got a penny in that book. I've talked about, I think I've probably got one in this What Sold recap we're about to do. Got some books that I got in a big lot that I own for 4 cents a piece. If those sell for $20, $30, $40, is that a profit margin you'd be willing to work with? I think it is. It is certainly one that I'm willing to work with. And I, at least for my part, am not about to let anybody tell me that, no, that is not a business model that makes sense. So again, let me know in the comments what you think of that. I thought this email was really interesting. It touches on all of those things that I talk about, comparing yourself to others, getting advice from people who don't know you or your business, either because they're not paying attention or they just literally don't know you. They're just a random YouTuber that's saying that doing it X way is the wrong way. I have talked to many people in chats and in Instagram messages who don't get the support that they probably should get from friends and family, that their friends and family think they're crazy for doing this. I'm probably no exception in that. I think I've relayed this story when I left my job selling cars to become a full-time reseller. Everybody there told me I would be back in 6 months. That is now 5 years and 2+ months ago that I left that dealership to go full-time doing this. I have never looked back. I have never been happier. So it absolutely, it's unfortunate when you don't have people that support you. But just know that there are those of us out here who do and are doing it, and hopefully you can draw inspiration from all of us. So again, let me know in the comments what you think of that, what your thoughts are. This is all of these topics are something that are very near and dear to me. It is, I see so many people that make decisions about their business that go against their own best interests because they listen to the advice of someone else whose values are not aligned with theirs. And that to me is a mistake. I've talked about it on numerous occasions. Make sure that you know what your goals are, not necessarily just financial, but in terms of your time, your investment, the kinds of things you're interested in doing and not interested in doing. To go back to the tool example, could I learn tools? Yeah, I think I probably could. I'm a reasonably bright guy. I could figure it out if I so desired. But to me, I'm just not interested in that. And those are the choices you get to make. And once you've figured that out, then you can start to plan for your business and do what she's doing, experimenting. You try listing some things and see what they do. Like I'm going through with Whatnot right now as a new selling platform for me. I'm still trying different types of books. I did biographies the other day, and that sale was a total bust. I think I sold one or two. I won't do that again. I'm doing science fiction and fantasy on Fridays. Those sales, by and large, are going very well. I will continue to do those, and I will continue to experiment and learn and grow. And as long as you're doing those things and are achieving your own goals, don't listen to anybody else. Don't even listen to me. You've gotta be true to yourself. With all that, let's get into this what sold segment.
Use updates.
So, like I said, I think I've got 16 things here. Real mix of stuff. I think it's mostly all books this week, but different types, different kinds. This first one is a high school yearbook from Worcester, Ohio, the 1958 General. Picked this up at an estate sale, gosh, maybe 6 months ago for one whole dollar. It was on sale for $22.49 over on eBay. I sent out an offer to a watcher and sold it for $20.24 plus shipping. Paid $363 in fees, $203 for the promoted listing general fee, $6.13 to ship, which was paid, of course, by the buyer. This total net profit on this thing was $13.58. Yearbooks, not fast movers necessarily, but can do fairly well if you can get them for a couple of bucks or less. Elementary Meteorology, an illustrated hardcover from 1942, written by Finch, Trawartha, and Shearer and Caudell. Old vintage textbook for meteorology. I picked this up as part of the big 650 book lot back at the end of summer. I'm into this for 38 cents. It was available for $23.09. I sent out an offer and it sold for $20.78 plus shipping. I paid $4.67 in fees, $1.98 for promoted listings general. And my net profit, $13.75. Another book from an old paperback lot that I picked up at an estate sale. It was probably I want to say the 8th or 10th day of this sale. They had run it over 3 consecutive weekends. I had not been to this sale previously. Strolled in, and there was a massive shelf of vintage, like detective pulp paperback books. I bought almost all of them at 50 cents a piece. This one is The Name of the Game is Death by Dan J. Marlowe. It was a first printing paperback from 1962, Fawcett Gold Medal. Listed for $24.99, sold on an outgoing offer for $21.24 plus shipping. Paid $4.61 in fees, no promoted fee on this one. Yay me. Total costs $11.75, including shipping. Net profit $16.14. This was part of the big, what was supposed to be a science fiction book lot, but ended up having a lot of other stuff in it. This at least was close. This is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This was a book club edition from 1976. I've had a couple of very unusual book club edition books from that lot. We had, I believe it was Fahrenheit 451 from Ray Bradbury a couple of weeks ago. That sold for 40 odd dollars for a book club edition, which is very unusual. This is another one that was pretty valuable. Was listed for $27.99, sold on an outgoing offer for $23.79 plus shipping. Own this for 63 cents, so that's a pretty nice flip. $4.63 in fees, $2.20 for the promoted listing fee, net profit $16.13. I am well into the money on that science fiction lot from, gosh, I don't know, 6 weeks ago now. Another cool book from the big 650 book lot, A Girl Named Tomiko by Ronald Kirkbride. This was a 1959 Frederick Fell edition, hardcover in its dust jacket, ex-library copy with the kind of the Brodart, the Mylar cover. You can see on the picture there if you're watching on YouTube, the really bright reflection from my overhead light. This was listed on eBay and sold for $29.99 plus shipping. $5.45 in fees. Cost of goods sold, again, as part of that big lot, was just 38 cents. So the net profit on this one, $29.99 book, net profit $24.16. That's a winner. First sale on Etsy for the week. Another really strong week for me on Etsy. 24 items, I think, last week on Etsy alone, which is a new record for me. Rapidly approaching the point where I'll start to get a discount on my offsite ads. So that would be helpful. This is The Knowledge of God and the Service of God by Karl Barth. This was a second impression hardcover with its dust jacket from 1949. It was from that same big lot purchase, listed for $39.99. My entire Etsy store is on sale, so this sold for $35.99 plus shipping. $4.28 in fees, which is nice. No offsite ad fee for this one. Cost of goods sold, again, 38 cents. Net profit, $31.33. Another one on Etsy. This is from the recent 1800 book lot that I just picked up. This is Inside Design by Michael Greer. It's a book about mid-century modern interior decor. Coffee table sized book, illustrated hardcover with its dust jacket in pretty decent condition from 1962. Listed for $42.99 and sold for $38.69 plus shipping. $4.59 in fees, 50-cent cost of goods sold as part of that big purchase. Net profit, again, $33.60. This is one I picked up at an estate sale. For me, I probably paid more than I wanted to for the books I picked up at the sale, but they were all, to be fair, pretty good. I paid $2 a piece for probably over 100 books at this sale, which is a big, big number for me. But this is Hummus and the Farmer by Friend Sykes, a Rodale Press illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket from back in 1949. This also sold on Etsy, listed for $44.99 and sold for $40.49. Unfortunately, this was part of the offsite ad program. So again, mixed bag. I hate paying 15% for it, but it's a sale I might not have gotten otherwise. Fees, $4.72. The offsite ad fee, a whopping $6.88. Cost of goods, $2. Total profit, $26.89. Couple of old textbooks. I talk again about these. Someone messaged me or left a note on a previous comment on a previous video about not like when I go through these books, and I've said this myself, the odds of you finding these specific books is probably not super high. Like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, the odds of selling any one individual book, probably not all that great. The odds of selling a few books or quite a few books, if you've got enough listed, is actually pretty high. The reason I do this is to give you kind of some idea of the types of books that I'm finding and selling so that you can, at least when you see these kinds of books as you're out, decide whether or not you want to take the 5 or 10 minutes to research a few of them while you're on site. These are two old electron microscope textbooks from the 1970s. Transmission Electron Microscopy of Materials by Thomas and Gorringe from, I believe, 1972. And Electron Microscopy of Thin Crystals, a second revised edition from 1977. These two books combined sold for $47.98. I was into them for 94 cents a piece, so my total cost of goods sold was just $1.88. I paid $8.48 in fees. Oddly, only one of these had a promoted listing fee, so I expect at some point in the next week the other shoe will drop and I'll get a random off promotion fee for the other one, but the ad fee was only $1.78 on this. So I do expect that I will be paying a little bit more for another promoted listing, but we'll see. Cost me $7.63 to ship these things out. Again, the cost of goods sold for the two of them, 94 cents a piece, so $1.88. Net profit, $35.84. I love me some old textbooks. Hey, a nice sale over on Mercari. You may remember this would have been, gosh, maybe a month and a half ago. I sold volume 2 of this, The Magical World of Bossons by Robert E. Davis, for, I want to say it was almost $100. I also had a first edition of the first version of this book from 1982. It was a little bit more common, so not quite as valuable, but nonetheless, this did sell over on Mercari for $48 with free shipping. Again, at least for another 10 days or so, there's no fees on Mercari, so I didn't pay any fees. I did pay $6.88 to ship it, and I paid $1 at the estate sale to buy this book. So my total costs were $10.88. This $48 plus tax sale netted me $40.12. Definitely a cool book to be on the lookout for. Another sale over on Etsy. This was part of the big 10,000 book lots, or 15,000 book lot rather. So this goes back a couple of summers. This is Japanese Family Crests by Yuzuru Okada. This was from the Tourist Library series, volume number 37, an illustrated paperback from 1941, printed in Japan. Really cool old book, listed for $54.99 and sold for $49.49 over on Etsy, plus shipping. Again, another offsite ad. So my regular fees $5.54, the offsite ad fee $8.12. Cost of goods sold, however, was only 4 cents because it was part of that big lot. So that helps. Net profit $36.04. Japanese Family Crests. Interesting old book. This was an interesting one, and it goes back to something we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. So I think I talked about on Monday's show, eBay rolling out this 7-day window for people who are bidding on auction items to select that they want to shop more with you and delay their payment. And I mentioned at the time that they have the same problem of not being able to combine orders on offers. This is one of those cases. I sent out my random morning offers to someone, and I had a guy buy 6 individual books, but because of the way eBay handles offers, he had to pay for each of those books individually. So, of course, I was refunding a ton of shipping to combine these all into one purchase. But this guy bought 6 books total. Mostly they were art and history books. The one I have pictured here, because I couldn't capture them all on one screenshot, is Post-Impressionism from Van Gogh to Gauguin. But there was 6 total books that ended up being $54.38. Not a huge sale for 6 books. That's less than $10 a piece. But again, to go back to the first part of this segment, does it pay to have cheap books? In this case, yeah, my net profit on this thing, even after my cost of goods sold and all the fees and the drama of refunding the overpayment on shipping, I made $31 on these 6 books. Is that a number that you would take on any individual transaction? For my money, yes, that is worth doing. Again, you get to choose whether or not you agree with that. But for me, making a almost $55 sale plus shipping and making $31 on it is a value proposition that I'm willing to do. His order total with shipping was $82.27. That's after I refunded him shipping. My fees ended up being $16.04 plus $7.10 in promoted listing fees. I did save a little bit of money on the shipping. $15.88 is what I paid. I sent these out ground. He paid media rate. My cost of goods sold total for these 6 books was just $2.75, which is how I ended up with that net profit of $30.99. Again, let me know, is that a sale you would take? Would you take 6 sub $10 items for a $55 sale plus shipping to make $31? Clearly, my answer is yes. Continuing on, this one over on Etsy. This is a book I've actually had for a long time, and I'm surprised it took this long to sell, but it did finally sell. This is from 1859, a leather-bound illustrated book, Wilson's Human Anatomy. The 7th edition was published by Blanchard and Lee, in reasonably good condition for a book that's coming up on 200 years old. There was some wear on the cover. Some of the leather had kind of peeled away along the spine, but all in, this was a pretty nice copy of this book. I've probably had this thing for, I would guess 3, maybe 4 years. It has been here for a while. It was one of the first books I picked up in that big 15,000 book lot that took me essentially an entire summer to get through. This was listed for $74.99, sold for $67.49 plus shipping. Again, I saved a little bit on the shipping because I'd overestimated the weight on this by a little bit, but net profit $49.56 on this old book from the mid 1850s. Another multi-book sale. This was actually 2 separate sales. The person bought 3 books and then came back later and bought another one. I did combine all of these into one order and refund them some shipping difference, but they bought 4 books. The Delta High School Del High 1972 yearbook, The Magical Land of Noom by Johnny Gruelle, a 1922 children's book, a Dictionary of Painting by Martin Wolf, and the story behind the painting, a look back from 1962. So 2 art books, a children's book, and a high school yearbook that totaled $84.56 plus shipping. The order total, even after I refunded, was $100.95. I paid $10.08 in fees. Total cost of goods sold to me for these books that came from various lots that I've bought over the last couple of years, $4.53, leading to a net profit of $70.35. Another book from the 1800 book lot that I recently completed. This is Christmas in England, Papers from the Sketchbook of Washington Irving. This was from 1867, a really, really old hardcover in absolutely fantastic condition for its age. Listed over on Etsy for $99.99 and sold with 10% off for $89.99 plus shipping. Customers order total $104.59, fees $9.59. Unfortunately, another offsite ad fee of $14.31 on this one, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. Shipping cost, I did pay for the insurance on this, so my shipping cost was an extra $6.38, but it was cheaper to do it that way, to pay the $1 for the insurance than it would have been to ship this by Ground Advantage to get the $100 insurance. So that's why I choose to do it that way. I did save myself a little bit in the long run. Cost of goods sold, again, 50 cents. Total cost to me, $40 even, for a net profit of $64.59 for Christmas in England, Papers from the Sketchbook of Washington Irving. And this, I believe, is our flip of the week. This was on eBay. Parasite Dolls, the motion picture, DVD from Acer AD Vision from 2004. This was in both Japanese and English and was new and sealed. Sold for $99.99. You may remember late last winter, I did an episode where I talked about a estate sale that I had been to that John Cincinnati Picker had also been to, and he had done a video on this sale whose title was something like "This Estate Sale Was a Scam." And he did not really seem to find anything there of any value. And I bought 2 Rubbermaid totes full of anime books, graphic novels, and DVDs for 50 cents a piece. And I have made a killing on that sale. I had actually messaged John about that. That sale, to me, he was not wrong. There was a lot of stuff in that particular sale that was way overpriced, but there was value to be had there. And again, to circle clear back to the beginning of this episode, thinking about your business model, these are items that I would have been looking for that are generally not in his wheelhouse. It's not something that he looks for or probably looks at. So where I would miss an opportunity with tools, he missed an opportunity with all this anime and all these anime DVDs, and thinking that the sale had no value, where my perspective from my business model, that sale was a gold mine. So again, 50 cents cost of goods sold for this DVD. It sold for $99.99 plus shipping. Order total was $112.72, $15.57 in fees, $7.89 for the promoted listing fee. I did pay for Ground Advantage, which was $4.90 versus the medium L rate, because again, I get the $100 of insurance. So rather than paying the dollar on top of $463, it made sense to do Ground Advantage and just pay an extra, whatever it is, 27 cents to get that insurance. Got to be thinking all the time. These pennies start to add up. Again, the cost of goods sold, just 50 cents. Net profit on this thing, 75.76. And that, my friends, is going to put a wrap on the What Sold segment for this week. Really strong. I've been talking about it all month. December is on track to be a record December, barring a complete collapse. I'm going to have a record year for 2024. So very pleased with how things are going. I have made a few little tweaks in my business this year, adding Whatnot to the mix, an experiment that is ongoing and will continue. But I have over again, to just kind of cap off this episode, over the 5 years plus I've been doing this, I've found my niche. I have kind of refined and defined my business model and the things I can and can't make money on. I continue to try to squeeze little bits here and there to make more profit, choosing different ways to ship, different ways to pack, different ways to source, and all of that. So you're constantly trying to learn and make adjustments. But I hope that doing these shows, not just the reselling news piece, but the what sold, and kind of maybe once a quarter having this conversation about your business model and thinking about who you want to listen to and take advice from, helps you clear your thoughts about how you want to run your business and how you want to define what success looks like for you, and helps you move into next year with a very clear goal and a plan on how to get there. My friends, it has been a terrific year. There will probably be, if there's any news that happens of note over the next few days, I will have an episode next week. If there's not, I may pass on next Monday. So I guess stay tuned for that. There will be another video that drops in the next handful of days that has been a members only video. I have had some requests to kind of see my warehouse space, and I did do a members only video. It's just like a 4 or 5 minute quick walkthrough of my warehouse. That will be coming to all YouTube subscribers. It's either late this week or early next week. So if nothing else, you'll have that coming up. I hope everybody has a terrific Christmas. If I don't see you, have a terrific New Year's. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.